Hola amigos, ¿qué tal? Soy Cristina de Your Spanish Dreams, and in this video we're going to look at two verbs that normally cause a bit of confusion amongst learners of Spanish. Now these verbs are ser and estar. And the reason why these verbs cause a bit of confusion is because obviously in English there's just one verb to be for the two of them in Spanish. And traditionally these verbs are studied with very long lists of when to use one and when to use the other. And also this concept of permanent and temporary. And whereas it certainly may work in a lot of the cases, it's not 100% reliable thinking about these verbs in this way. For example, if I told you, mis abuelos están muertos, my grandparents are dead. Now, they're permanently dead, right? And so we see then how in many examples this rule doesn't really work. Or if I told you, estoy casada con Pete, I'm married to Pete. Now, I'm really hoping that it's not a temporary state, but rather a long-lasting relationship. And so again, that's when it becomes really confusing. When do we use one? When do we use the other? And so I've got a better way of looking at one verb and the other. And it is understanding really what each verb really describes. Ser describes characteristics. Ser describes essence, characteristics of places, things, people, whereas estar describes circumstances. Now I'm going to say that again because sometimes it takes a little while to really think about this with this perspective. Ser describes characteristics. Estar describes circumstances. I'm going to give you another example so you can really see what this really means. Now, I've got here this phone, este teléfono, and so este teléfono es pequeño, este teléfono no es moderno, es muy antiguo, ¿sí? Este teléfono no es útil, it's not very useful. Este teléfono es de color plata, yeah, it's silver in color, so I'm saying it's small, es pequeño, es antiguo, it's old, no es moderno, so it's not modern, no es útil, it's not useful, es de color plata, es silver. Pero este teléfono está en mi mano y este teléfono está roto, ¿sí? So this phone is broken. It's actually permanently broken because I'm not planning to fix it. Está roto y está en mi mano. It's in my hand, yeah? And now I could say está en el sofá, yeah? It's on the sofa. So when I'm talking about my phone described in terms of the characteristics of my phone, I'm using ser. Es moderno, no es moderno, es antiguo, no es útil, es pequeño, es de color plata, está roto, está en mi mano, está en el sofá. We could also say, este teléfono está limpio, it's clean, está sucio, it's dirty, está seco, it's dry, está mojado, it's wet. So these are all circumstances outside the phone's characteristics, yeah? When I use estar. And when I use ser, they are all characteristics of the phone. So you can see how when we use ser, we're describing characteristics, and when we use estar, we're describing circumstances. So I'd like to encourage you to think of your own examples of what things you could say using ser and what things you could say to use estar, thinking about this new approach. And in fact, you could share with us your examples or even your experience with these two verbs. And hopefully after this video, you've gained a bit of clarity and found it a little bit easier to think when to use one and when to use the other. Thank you for watching and see you in the next one. Hasta pronto!